chapter, we saw how to create this entire HTML page. In this chapter, we'll be looking at how to create our own page. This page, I actually created that to show you some basic aspects of HTML, using HTML to create a layout of your web page. So in order to understand the DOM, or the document object model, that the browser understands, or what the browser sees behind the scene, you can download this add-on on Firefox. It's free and it takes only a few minutes to download and install. So I'll be posting this link on this video's description, so go to this website and download this. And after you download that, you'll get something like this: Inspect Element Firebug. If you right click on your mouse button, there are actually two options, the Inspect Element and the Inspect Element with Firebug. Although both of them are quite similar, but in development purpose, Firebug is far more organized than the Inspect Element. But Inspect Element is a built-in tool that comes with Firefox, and if you'll get to know how all the stylings, the JavaScript codes, the HTML layout is laid out, and you'll also find out few information. You can also find out about information on how requests are sent and how responses are received. But because we are talking about organization, and the Firebug makes it far easier to decode what's happening behind the scenes. So if you click on this Inspect Element after you have downloaded this, once you download that, you'll get, and if you right click on any web page, you'll find the Inspect Element with Firebug, and if you click on that, a new window will pop up at the bottom. You can there are two ways to understand how this entire thing works. Now let's open up Apps in the Studio. So we have got this layout that I already showed you. In this, when I loaded this page on my browser, you can see it's loading the page from my file system. How do you know that? Because this is an actual web page. This is the web page from the Volunteers program from Mozilla. So if you look carefully at the protocol that we already discussed about, it's telling us what sort of protocol it's using to talk with the server. In here, we don't have a server. We're not running any sort of server. We're just accessing a static page, or a static HTML page from the file system. So because I'm accessing it from my file system, I've got the protocol of file, but in here you'll see the difference, that because it's using a secure channel to talk with the server, it's using HTTPS. Now if you even right click on this page, you'll find that the Inspect Element with Firebug at the end of the list, and if you click on that, you'll see all the markup or all the layout elements listed accordingly, along with the CSS properties. The CSS properties also come at the right side of your window. So you can explicitly look at the CSS properties just by clicking on CSS, and you can also look at the JavaScript in different contexts when you want to look at the script tab. Now we're not worried about what the script will look like at the moment. We'll be talking about that later on, but let's get the basics done first. So when we talk about the basics, let's move on to the easier one first. It might be a little confusing to you, all these classes, all this layout, so let us move on to this part. Now we created a layout like this. It had an opening HTML element. This was the main element, or the root element, and it has got two nested elements, one that contains the information about the page, and the other one contains a layout and the content of the page. So the head element is responsible for providing all the stylings, all the information about your page. So these are actually the information that's telling the browser. It's not going to show on the it's not going to directly talk with the user or the visitor. It's going to directly talk with the server. Whenever we move on to this body section or this body element section, it will show or display whatever you put onto inside its opening and closing tags. So the body section is responsible for creating the layout of this entire page. So let's analyze this for a moment. So if you bring up the other built-in tool that comes with Mozilla Firefox, the inspect element, you'll see something similar. So when I when I try to load this entire page on the browser will need to exactly read the page as I have already coded in here. So if there's a problem, the browser won't be able to read everything properly. So if you can look carefully, it's also printing out the same thing. It's reading the same thing, but the Firebug tool or the add-on from Mozilla is far more organized than it's on the built-in tool. So you can use the you can actually use this built-in tool to analyze network performances. So we're not really worried about network performances in here because it's just a page that's residing in our file system. So let's just close that and let's look at this Firebug extension and how can we use that. So there are two ways to refer to elements on this page. If you hover your mouse or hover your pointer over this page element, you'll see the blue, it's actually highlighting that part. So when I hover over this HTML, it's highlighting the entire document because the content is nested inside the main or the root tag of HTML. In the second section, if you look carefully, the header part, or the head part, I mean, it's not the header part, it's the head part. It's telling you what the what information it got from the server. So just assuming we are running this web page on a server, the server has asked the web browser of the user to use the style sheet that's residing inside a folder called CSS, and it must use a core set or a char set, whatever you call that. It must be using the UTF-8 encoding system. So it's providing all the information that the browser needs to load this page. So if you hover over this, you won't get anything highlighted on your web page because it's actually talking to the browser behind the scenes. Now let's minimize that and let's come back to the body section. If you hover over this body section, you can see, and if you click over it, and you click on the DOM, if you click over it and you maximize the header section, you can see when I hover over the H1 element, it's highlighting only that section, only that part. Another way of doing is that you can click this pointer symbol, and if you hover this over your page, your corresponding elements on the DOM or the code gets highlighted. So if you hover over this paragraph section, you see that the paragraph at the bottom gets highlighted along with the border. So this was the paragraph that we were talking about. Now if you hover over this image section, the image element or the image tag gets highlighted, and likewise if we hover over the H1 tag, and the content along with the element gets highlighted. If you notice carefully on the right side, on the right hand side at the bottom on the stylings, on the style section, style section. If you hover over this and if you click over it, it will permanently select that. Now, if you look carefully, it's also telling me what these styles are applied on this element. So suppose you want to test out the color. You can close this So if you want to test the alignment of the text, you can actually cross this out, and you see that the style has been removed from the element, and the element moves to the left. So the left, when we talk about the line.